Hi everyone, my name is Jay and I currently work as a AI scientist at Microsoft. In today's video, we wanted to build how we can actually do end-to-end RAG at a production level where you can actually deal with thousands of documents, additions, deletions, and everything, which turns automatically with very less human interference. As part of this, I did explain it very brief detail in our previous video, but in short, what we wanted to do is that uh, we have a database called like MongoDB or SQL or anywhere where we can actually upload our data, and Azure AI Search basically consumes the data in the form of indexes. And whenever there is a deletion or addition or any changes to the existing data in the database, Azure AI Search automatically picks those changes and consumes the data. And it's kind of a, for assume, kind of a database itself, Azure AI Search database along with vectors and other search. So whenever you search for any question in a real time, it only shows the documents in a real time. So if there is a deletions, it doesn't show those documents. And you can use any model, open source model like Llama or like Microsoft 5 model on top of this Azure AI Search to answer your final question using RAG based approach. And this is kind of very much helpful at a production level itself. And there's a secondary thing which is very important, which you can actually achieve using Azure AI Search, is that at a RAG you deal with lot of documents, but at the same time, if you consider bigger organization like Microsoft, Google, or anything, there are some documents which should be accessed by admins and not by others. And you can actually specify that access level of a documents also in Azure AI Search. So by that one, your RAG, even though it's common for everyone, you can actually basically kind of channel or filter it based on the user's access itself. So let's get started. Let's start creation of our Mongo database, which is the primary step where we basically save our entire RAG data. And click on Azure Cosmos MongoDB and do select the request unit database account and select your subscription resource group. Let's give the name Azure RAG production, as we're trying to do production level RAG here. And let's go to leave everything as defaults. Don't need to worry about backup policy, as this is a test case. And let's try to review and create this one. It might take around 3 minutes for the deployment to successfully finish. So let's wait for 3 minutes. So as you can see that resource got created. Let's go to the resource, and you can see there's a different ways in which you can actually connect to the Mongo database created here. Let's go to Python and let's create copy the connection string. The first thing we want to do is that let's upload some data, test data, to the Mongo database itself. And you can see that I prepared a sample data, which is the question is about Microsoft product, and the answer is basically description of Microsoft product. And I basically added the ID for each one of the document, as ID is kind of needed in our later process itself. So that's the reason. Let's try to run this one. And please do install PyMongo uh, as it is needed for uploading the data to the Azure Cosmos DB. And just let's replace the connection string which we just did there. And I'm trying to create a database called Azure RAG MongoDB, or let's try to say it as like Azure RAG production. And inside that, I just want to do the QA page for our RAG. And you can see all the documents has been successfully uploaded, and you can actually run the script to basically see the database existing in the uh, Mongo database is Azure RAG production, and collections created is QFIs. And you can actually see the same by coming to this tab and going under Data Explorer and cancel this one, and you can see the data which we created just shown here. Just sample data of question and answer followed by ID. The next step is basically create Azure AI Search. Let's go to create Azure AI Search. Go to AI Search, go to create. There are two ways of creating Azure AI Search. Either you can actually do it using the portal or you can do it using the Python code. And we are going to show you both the ways on how you can actually do that. Let's select the existing resource group. Let's give Azure AI Search production. Okay. Please make sure you select the free tag thing, otherwise it would be charged a lot. Next, we don't need to worry about the scale and we don't need to worry about the tags. Let's try to just create it. Okay. Let's wait for the deployment to finish. Usually the Azure AI Search finishes pretty quick, as you can see. And as part of it, as you can see that if you didn't watch my previous video, please do watch on what we are trying to do here. But the major thing we need to do is that we have data sources, indexes, and skill sets. So the thing is that in data sources, we just want to connect the data source which we want to use. And the data source which we want to use is the Mongo database which we just created. You can come down and select the Cosmos DB and here just give maybe Azure Cosmos DB, just give MongoDB data source. Okay. And one good thing is that everything is in the same account, so you can just click on choose existing and it will show you the database we created and uploaded the data. And it will actually show the database. At the time, it will show you the QA page itself. It will also let you track the deletion. So whenever there is a deletion, you don't need to do anything. Everything will get automatically triggered. And finally, save the data sources. Okay. Now we have created a data source in our Azure AI Search. The next thing we need to do is that we need to create an index. Index is place where all the data will be saved in Azure AI Search. And in the same way, we can create the index both in the portal at the same time in the Python code. I'm going to show you both of them at the same time. You can skip to the Python part if you just want the Python version. So just click on add. Let's try to say a search for QPace. Okay. And let's try to add the fields. So what are the fields we want to add? We want to add the two fields which we uploaded the data, question and answer. And both of them are strings. And we want both of them to be retrievable, filterable, and searchable. And this selects the default search, but you can use any different language if you are using this for a different language. And let's try to add answer, retrievable, filterable, and searchable. Save. And finally, we need to add two more fields as we are trying to do a RAG vector search or semantic search. So we need two more fields which are vector fields or the question getting converted into a vector. And as it's a vector, it's under collection em.single and the dimensions as we are using uh, as you can see in our previous video, as we are using a sentence transform model, the output is basically 384 dimensions. And let's create a vector profile here. You can select any kind of like algorithms, which is XS to KNN or HNSW, and you can select any metric, cosine, dot product, or Euclidean. Let's select cosine as of now, and let's create save. We need to do the same for our answer. So answer vector, and we need to do the select the same collection em.single, dimensions would be 384 and the profile would be the previous profile which we just created, and click on save and finally save it. Okay, And now, if you wanted to do the same thing in Python code, I'm going to show you the Python code. Okay. Here's the Python code. As part of it, you need to install two packages, Azure Search Documents and Azure Identity. And after that, the thing you need to do is that you need to have endpoint, credential, and index. Index name is just like similar to the index which we created. So let's get the endpoint and the credentials. So go to the overview and you can get your index URL just here. Let's replace this here. Okay. And the second thing is that go to keys and copy any admin key. That's how you can actually find your key. And let's try to see that we just want to use a search dash rag, a search dash rag dash production. Okay, let's run this. And this is a simple template which is almost the same thing what we did in our portal version. We have question vector, answer vector, and we have the same algorithm. And you just give your index name and the fields here, the fields which you just created, all these fields. And finally, the semantic search thing here, which is on which you want to search the algorithm itself. And finally, run it. You can see that it says that it's got created. Let's try to go and see in portal whether it's really created or not. Let's go to indexes. You can see the new one got created. So as you can see that both of them got created. So the next thing is basically to create an indexer. Let's try to see and go to an indexer. Indexer is nothing but which basically takes all this input data and basically keeps it in our index from the data source to the index. So you can see that you need to select your index. Let's try to select our QFS, and after that let's try to select our data source, which is the MongoDB which we created, and finally the skill set. So here, what is the skill set? So whenever indexer basically takes an input data from Mongo database and tries to keep it in the index, it tries to perform any pre-processing steps which are needed. In our case, we are trying to create a pre-processing step called converting an input text to a embedding thing itself. So that's what we discussed in previous video where we saw that. Please have a look at the link or like on the top right hand side of this video on in which you can actually create an Hugging Face free version of model and host it freely, which converts input text into an output vector. So let's try to create a skill set which can use that API, and so that the indexer can use this API skill set and basically convert the input data resources into vectors and then can finally keep it in the index. Let's go back to our skill sets. Okay, let's create a new skill set, and as we hosted the previous thing in Azure Functions, come to the function, it will basically show everything. We don't need to do anything here. Copy it here and just paste it over here. Okay, and just remove the HTTP headers, and let's give the batch size as 1 and degree of parallelism as 1. And context would be the document. What is our document? The entire thing which is present here, or let's say which is present in our Cosmos DB, which is right here, which is the question answer. So this entire thing is called document. So our context is hashtag document, and let's give our inputs which we wanted to send it to the API document slash question. Okay, so uh, the name is actually the question, and the source would be the hashtag document hashtag question, and we need to do the same thing for our answer too. Okay, let's get our answer and let's say answer. Okay, now what are we getting output of that thing? We are basically getting an output called vectors. So we need to map our target names to. So which is for question, it would be question vector, and the output is also question vector for us. And finally, the answer should be the same, exactly the same answer vector. Okay, and let's try to save this. It says that the request is invalid and it can't, a non-empty request body is required. Hmm, maybe this is the mistake, I guess. Extra comma. So let's save it. Now let's go to our indexer. Let's create an indexer where we give the index and data source and the skill set which we just created. You can make it run like job like hourly, daily, and custom. You can also select an index cache location. So whenever you are basically having a repeated data, it tries to use the cache and so it will be far quicker. Let's click on save. After that, you need to do very one most important stuff. Go to indexer function. And here's the place where matters a lot. So where you need to define the output mapping for each one of them. You need to place in here, you need to place two things, which is you are getting the same document question vector and mapping it to the question vector and getting the document answer vector and mapping it to the answer vector. And just click on save and just click on run and go to the execution history. And you can see it's a success and it ran 6 documents. And so to view the documents, let's go to our Azure AI Search. Save. Okay. AI Search. Let's go to mm, so as you can see that indexer, execution history, you can see that as soon as we created itself, it just ran before you even like edited that stuff. So let's try to see what we can do. Uh, let's try to see if it actually created or not. So go to Azure AI Search, search production, and go to indexes, QA pairs, and just search it. You can see that it actually did it, but before even we saved it, it actually ran the indexer. So that's the reason you couldn't actually see the uh, stuff of getting converted into the vector. So let's try to do one thing. Let's try to change these indexes 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Let's try to upload some new data. So the new data got uploaded. I just changed the ID. It's the same old data, but yeah. Let's go back here and let's go back. We can do two things. As we have another thing, let's try to uh, copy this and run the indexer again. Let's go to our old indexer itself, and it's a cheat, but settings, index definition. Instead of keyword pairs, let's just select this one and basically save and just run it. Yeah, it seems you kind of need, as it's a free version, you kind of need to wait for like 180 seconds before you run a new one. Let's go into the thing which it got created, and let's click on search. Yeah, so you can see that it actually uploaded the documents to the new indexes, and you can see that all the QA vectors has been formed. The next step is that how do we run the RAG using this? Uh, Basically, we want to run the RAG. So whenever we search anything, we need to get the relevant documents from here. Then basically run the RAG using any kind of a LLM model. And we'll be using Llama 2 model to basically run that. Um, let's start how we can actually retrieve the documents from Azure AI Search and use the Llama model to do the basic RAG. So let's first thing is that we need to um, check our runtime. It's T4 GPU, which should be good enough for us. So as it's a free version. So let's try to install transformers, accelerate, and bit stands as part of it. Mm, Being face hub. You need to go to your tokens page, and if you don't have a token, get a token itself, and just paste the token and click login. It should be successful. And if you don't have access to the chat model, please make sure that you get access to the chat model. I do have access to the chat model as can be shown here. And after that, we need to install the same packages which we installed previously, the search documents and Azure Identity. And the next thing is, now it's very interesting. We need to do a couple of things. The first thing we need to do is that we need to get our endpoint. That to get the endpoint, the first thing we need to do is that go to our Azure AI Search, go to overview, and basically get our endpoint, which is this one. And the next thing is we need to get our key. As shown previously, go to keys, select your primary key, and paste it here. The final thing is that we need to get our index name, as we have two indexes, but you know the second index is the place where we actually uploaded the vectors. So let's select the second one. Okay. And the next one we need to do is have any query, like what is Microsoft Word or any query you want. HF token is the Hugging Face token, which we just saw. You need to have the token here and paste the token here. And the model ID of the Hugging Face sentence transformer, which we are using, is here, and the API of the model is here. The only thing you need to do is that in our search client, the client which is connected to the Microsoft, like the AI search, is right there. Just run that, and you can see that it basically returns each document and how much it is actually related for each one of them. And you can see that it's highest for the Word and least for the PowerPoint and other documents. And now let's import the transformers, the one which we want to use, which is basically the model name, and our model name is basically the Llama model, chart model itself. And it's gonna take some time as it needs to download 9.8 gigs. But in a freer version, you can definitely download until like 12 to 15 gigs. So it's able to run on any free version of Collab. Now let's do it. As you can see, this is the final output, which basically assistant says what is a Microsoft as word itself. As you can see, it doesn't reference any of the Outlook or anything here, just the word itself. By this way, you can actually upload the data. Uh, by this way, you can actually upload the data to the Mongo database and you can see the real-time results if you enable the hourly or like whenever there is a change in the data source to index the data automatically convert into vectors and so on. You can actually see the real-time effect in the output RAG itself. This is how you basically do end-to-end RAG um, in production level at a really high scale, like from thousands of documents. You can actually do it in a go, and Azure AI Search is practically very quick respect to that. And thank you everyone, and please like, share and subscribe if you like the video.